Good afternoon, family. Some of you may know, some of you may not. This is my mother, Tara Smith. We're here today. We're going live for the first time together here on the ministry page of Restoring Hope Ministry. She has been behind my vision the whole time for the last probably 5 years now for this ministry. And today we just want to come on here. We want to talk about the impacts of incarceration. Not just on me as an individual, but the impacts of the family members, of the people that love you, of the friends that love you, because the decisions that we make don't only affect us, but it affects the ones around us. We may not think that a small, simple decision would affect our whole family, that a small, simple decision would affect friends or even the neighborhood or, people around you, but it does. So today we're here to talk about that because I want you to be mindful of the decisions that you make because they can affect other people. So back 2015 when I first got incarcerated, nobody thought that I would be getting locked up at that time. So we think the last time you hug each other, you kiss each other goodbye, you'll see each other again, And nobody thinks that you'll see on the news that your son is locked up or get a phone call that your son is locked up or, by the grace of God, we didn't get a phone call saying that I was dead as I was suicidal, So that can happen to anyone. You could wake up tomorrow and your child could be locked up just by one simple decision or small mistakes leading up to bigger things. Or you could wake up tomorrow and your parents could be locked up, your dad could be locked up, your mother could be locked up. Because just because you're a mother and your father doesn't mean you're perfect. Some of you still go out drunk driving and driving around, whatever it may be. That can get you locked up. So there's so many things in life that can get us locked up. I see we have a slow connection here, so I'm going to try to get a better connection. In life that can get us incarcerated. So we want to speak today, how does it impact the family? You think this is October 3rd or 4th, October 4th of 2015. So here it is, we're planning Thanksgiving coming up, my birthday coming up, November 2nd. So you have been probably seeing me every birthday for 20 years of my life, 21 years of my life. Here I am 21 years old, going into my 22nd birthday. You don't get to see me free. You don't get to see me on the outside. You can't hug me on the outside, so you can give me a hug now, though. You can give me a hug now, right? You can give me a hug now. So those are the things that we don't think about, the decisions that we make, the changes that can happen overnight. So that's what I want us to talk about today. How did it change your life immediately from the point of me getting incarcerated? Let's say back in 2015, how did your life change immediately?
Automatically there's fear and worrying about, safety because you see and you hear things about prison that it's real. Not exactly like you see it on TV, I'm sure. But immediately there's fear. They're just constantly worrying if you're okay, if they're safe, wanting to hug and help comfort when you can't. I would also say guilt. You start searching, what did I do? That, you didn't raise them right to make good decisions, in which you do. I mean, most parents do, and I know we had you in church and all that. Ultimately, everything comes down to your own decisions, but you do go back and you start looking through things did I do the best I can? And of course, we made mistakes as parents, but we did teach you at home. We did, teach, have you in Christian school, have you in church. But there's no guarantees. The Bible says, train a child the way he should go, he'll not depart from it. That don't mean you won't go off and do things, but it just means that you will know the truth because you do know the truth. So all of that starts going through your mind. People asking questions when you don't even know what's going on.
Right.
You don't know, what happened, what's going to happen, how long, your child's going to be there, your loved one, maybe a husband, a wife, whatever. So, you just so many questions. And it's easy for yourself to get in a bad spot because trying to deal with everything, you turn to food, turn to alcohol, turn to different things. So there's so many things that start going through your mind. And then ultimately it's like, oh, wait, he's going to miss out on this. He's going to miss out on that. We're not going to have him here for this. So that's the initial impact right there.
So would you say then that did it drive a wedge between family members? Do you think it maybe even brought some together for a time period, to unite? What do you think the impact was on that?
Yeah, I think so. Everybody comes together there, and there's a difference of opinions that kind of get set aside. You communicate with other family members like, oh, I'm going to do this. I need you to do this to help out with the situation. But there's disagreements in how to handle things when your loved one's in prison. But for the most part, I would say it does bring some family members together, but there's always a missing piece to it.
Right. Now, do you think did it impact you, say, in the first sense? Now, if there's a situation that you could think of, you don't really need to, speak on it, but say that you could just see people are looking at you, judging you, or maybe even just hear things, about me, or things that it's just like overwhelming because it's not just a victim impact, but it's also a family impact that falls in for the victim's family and also for, the convict's family, whether it be before, trial or after trial. Did you see that pressure coming from outside places onto you as well?
Yeah, definitely. Just with hearing things of events and things that lead up to events, and then hearing just people talk in general. I know just in work situation, I would hear things, and I actually had a media outlet reach out to me, in which
wow.
I didn't do that, but that's just a lot of pressure and a lot of stress to deal with, because you're already focusing and already have some guilt, thinking, what did I do? Then you have all of that, things you hear, and you overhear people talking. So yeah, definitely, it definitely impacts how you feel.
Could you think of the first time that you had to come to, well, it would be the jail. I can't remember if you came to the jail first or if you came into the courthouse first, but can you remember the first time, what it was like to see me in shackles and chains standing, in front of the court, I guess at this time, looking like a big Oompa Loompa, if you will, in the big orange jumpsuit, like Caitlin says, looking like a Oompa Loompa, so.
Yeah, I do. I remember going to the courthouse in Salisbury and standing about 5 feet from you, and I was making a joke, like, I'm going for it. I'm going to give him a hug. I don't care if I get arrested. And of course, I was just being funny, but it's hard to be that close and not get to touch your loved one. Mm-hmm. And it's hard to stand there and have to plead with the judge. But making it known, you make known to the judge, everybody makes choices, and our choices land us where we are. Right. And there's consequences. Right. So that's always difficult. But yeah, being that close and not being able to touch you and trying to say, okay, am I just going to give him a hug and go to jail? But of course I didn't do that. But yeah, that was difficult. Right,
and that was actually, if you think about it, that was 4.5 years into it in Maryland. So this probably happened the first time in Virginia, and then in Virginia, I know when you came to see me, you couldn't come in and give me a hug. So there was such a long period of time until I got to the prison in Virginia, which took 3 years, that you could even hug me. So there was no physical contact. So just think, if I'm a father and I have kids coming to see me, they can't hug me. My little niece, who was 1 year old in the last picture we had before I was incarcerated, she couldn't hug me because you all were coming to see me through a video screen just like this. So this is the interaction that we were able to have as a son and a mother, or a son and sisters, or a son and cousins and friends. Thank you for everyone who took their time to come see me, to drive out, that took the time to answer the phone, to put the money on the phone. Thank you for that. Because I know that's an impact. I come out and I see how expensive everything is. But I was always taken care of. I was always able to rely, on my family. And I'll tell you, my family didn't sit there and say, hey, I think you're innocent, get out today. We're not even going to go into the innocent or not. We're not going to go into that. But I bring that up to the point of, even though if it is your family, you may know, hey, you did something wrong, but you still love them. You don't give up on them. You still love them. And you say, okay, how can we make this better? Can I see you improving? How can you work on yourself? So I want to ask you, as I started going through that process and in the jail there, could you see that my focus, as it says here, is probably mirrored so you can't read it. I got to fix that. It says focus with a line, and it says starve your distractions and feed your focus. Prior to incarceration, my distractions were so much. And you said before I got locked up, there were times that I was at the house, it didn't even seem like I was at the house. No. Right? Can you talk about that a little bit? The impact of basically the steroid drug use and alcohol.
Yeah, I would say with maybe the last year before you went in, that you would come to a family function and you'd stay a very short time. And even with that, you weren't there. You were always planning. I think you were always planning to do whatever you were going to do, and you weren't there. But I do want to speak on something, if that's okay. Mm-hmm. You said something about when you first went in. I shared your story in juvie. Our church goes into juvenile detention once, sometimes twice a month.
Now, where's that at? What juvenile is that?
It's in Salisbury.
In Salisbury.
Like Wycomico County. We go in, and there was one Tuesday that my pastor, he said, also my brother, he said that he wanted me to share your story, which I was feeling led to do that, but I do not like to speak in front of people at all. But I did that, and this particular night, we had 5 different groups because the kids weren't getting along, so I had to share it. Supposed to share it 5 times, one didn't come in, so I shared it 4. But I did say to them, as I've said to many people, that they've asked how we've done it through the years, and of course it's God. But I did share with them that within the first year, maybe it was just my perception, that I think it was lip service, because I think you were just still processing everything, and you were getting to the point where it was real. And once you got past, maybe not even a full year, once you got past that period, I could see a difference, 100%. Just the way you talk, the way you act, you didn't seem as down. I'm sure there were some down times that you didn't make known to me, of course, as your mom, as I had them too. But you just put on that face, that everything's okay, because that's just what we do. That's not what we should do. Sometimes we need to open up and talk about things, but it's not so easy.
Right.
And I even forgot what your question was, but I think I answered it.
Yeah.
Just a little extra.
And, as family members, dealing with parents that have been divorced, that was something that I never dealt with. That was something that I never talked to them about, my mother or my father, until I got incarcerated. But that was something that impacted me up until my incarceration, because I always felt like, hey, in my head at one point in time over the past years before that, when I was younger, it was, oh, well, if they get a divorce, then I can have this house and that house and do this and do that. Everybody's not going to be on top of everybody. So as a child, I blamed myself, for even wishing that. So if that's something that you've been through, a divorce in the family, it's not your fault. It's the 2 people that have gotten that divorce. That's something that they have worked through and decided to go their separate ways, maybe for the best, of everyone else or the best of themselves. But kids, it's not your fault, but it may still impact you. So you have to take it and speak to your parents about that divorce, of why it's affecting you and how is it affecting you. So therefore, it doesn't influence your decisions down the road. That's something that you want to deal with. So you said after about a year, so I wanted you were at juvie the other night, and the first thing you opened up with was how you were scared, when I first went into the jail. So you were at Juve the other night and you had a service, and then right after the service, what happened right after the service?
When we were there, you mean?
When you were there, you were supposed to have another service coming in.
A fight had broken out.
A fight had broken out.
Yeah.
And you said that was like the loudest thing you've ever heard.
Yeah, it was loud, and we were supposed to have a third group come in and couldn't. So yeah, it was loud, and to me that's scary, and especially thinking about how you were in prison and how many times I'm sure that happened and the things that you've seen and had to go through there.
And that's what my question was. Now that you've had someone that's going through these things, do they impact you differently? Mm-hmm. If you see something on TV or hear somebody talking about it, does it impact you differently?
It does. And one thing, it's going to sound crazy, but I remember seeing the mugshot of you, and it changed how I look at people that get in trouble.
Wow.
Because, naturally, we want to sit up on our high horse and say, oh my goodness, look at that. I can't believe that person did this, did that. He looks like he's out of his mind type thing. But then after having a kid go through the incarceration, I shouldn't say kid, I guess, but my kid, go through incarceration, I don't look at it like that. I look at him as a person, like
right.
that's somebody's son, that's somebody's daughter, their husband, their wife, whatever. So that changed with me, and that's a good thing. Not being judgmental, I guess, is the thing. And then even with, going into the juvenile ministry, I don't know that I probably would have had any burden for that had it not been for the situation.
Yes. So
it has definitely gave me a bigger burden to reach out and to spread Jesus to people. Because, it's just a need. It's a need. So that's definitely a burden that I have, is to work with the juveniles and possibly even with the adults at some point.
Now, I asked Pastor Stephen about this the other night. Do you think that the prison system as a whole together, maybe some had more than the other, but do you think they had enough programs that I was able to do and complete? Do you think they had enough services, whatever it may be, that if I was willing to do them, to get them done?
I think so. I think every time I talk to you, we're doing things to better yourself, especially in Virginia, I believe it was. They had a lot of stuff, welding program, HVAC program. You can get your GED if you don't have it, church services. I feel like you definitely made the best of the situation. I think you even started a couple of Bible studies and got very involved there. And every situation, no matter if you're incarcerated or not, you're only going to get what you put in.
Right.
If you go in to do the time and that's it, which sadly that's what a lot of people do, then they're going to come out for the same way as they went in. And thankfully with you, that wasn't the case. I say often when people ask me, it saved your life. It got you back to God and what you grew up with, and you knew the truth, and it saved your life. Had you not went to prison, I wholeheartedly believe that you would not be sitting here. And you definitely wouldn't be sitting here, but you know what I mean. You wouldn't be alive. So.
And not only save my life, bring me back to God, but was able to help me get off the substances that I was on. It was able to help me work through mental things in my head, going through self-doubt or going through unforgiveness, or not loving myself, whatever it may have been, able to work through that. So one thing I could say that my family always did was encourage me. One thing that I did was I need to, sorry, we're hearing from James here, said, hey, Miss Taryn Phillip, it's Nikki Tubbs. I'm here to listen, touching spots in my life that I need to address. I absolutely love this ministry you started, Phillip. I'm super proud of the turnaround you have done. You are an inspiration to me. Nikki, it's good to see you. We love you. It's been a long time. So was able to work through that, but I'm thankful that my family, was there to encourage me. Hey, what programs are you doing? Are you going to church? Are you going to Bible study? And sometimes I didn't want to talk about going to church or going to Bible study. Sometimes I didn't want to talk about going to do the program. Sometimes I didn't want to talk about going to the yard. Sometimes I wanted to lay in the bed. Sometimes I didn't want to call on the phone. You know, and somehow mom would find a way to contact somebody.
Yeah.
Where is my son?
That's right.
You know, and recently it was text Amanda, where is my son? You know, but it would come to the point where, especially as you get closer to the end, you know, if you're dealing with somebody in incarceration closer to the end, the closer it gets to the end, the harder it is. They always said that. I never believed it because it was always, no, once I get close to the end, I'm ready to go. But you think about it, the closer you get into the marathon, to the end of the marathon, you're running, you're tired. You know it's coming to the end, but it's getting harder. It might not be getting harder physically, but it's getting harder mentally. Because you hit that boost if you're a runner towards the end. You hit that boost and you can sprint, you know. You can hit that boost at the end of your prison system. But mentally, it gets harder. Because in the prison system, you think, you know how many times I would say, oh, this got canceled. Or the phones are shut off. Or this, you know, didn't happen. So you get let down so much. So if you have a family member incarcerated, don't be their letdown. Be the one that is solid, that will always be there for them. Because we need it behind bars. We need consistency. We needed that love flowing in. We needed that love from, shout out to all the ministers that were coming into the prison system. That come in there that was praying for my mom. Pastor Evans had put it on the phone line, and Mike McFadden and Elder Conrad, you all three put it on the phone line praying for my mom when she was having her health issues with the memory issues. And if I know it today, she's still on the prayer line. So these are people that are like family too, coming in and helping the guys inside that are coming in to minister. But they don't just care about us, they care about our family too, and the ones that love us. So we have to continue supporting the family members that may be inside, you know. So one event that I want to talk about, I know it was special to you. I did it with my mother and then my father for Mother's Day and Father's Day. In Virginia, we had, on Mother's Day, or a couple days around it, we had a special event. Actually, I could post a picture in the comments later on when we get off. They brought in a shirt and a tie, and I got to wear the shirt and tie and jeans. And Mom came in for Mother's Day. We had a speaker come in talking about a mother's love. We got to sit there. We got to eat and enjoy the day. It was a beautiful, beautiful event that we got to take place in. That's something that, I would say these prison systems can use more of. Allow people to see their family more. We just had a family day at the last 2 places I was at where you and my sisters got to come to. And so these are things that really help those that are incarcerated, I'm sure. So I wanted to ask you, how did that help you being able to come spend time with me in those situations?
It was nice because you don't have that contact, as much as you would like. So just to get to sit down and to see you in normal clothes. I remember it's a yellow shirt. I remember it distinctly.
Yep,
it's just
shirt.
like it was
your
yesterday.
favorite color. That's why you remember.
It is. But I do remember, and you standing and speaking about things that may have been difficult in your life. So that was nice to have that time to where you opened up some. And then the family days, I think they're great. You get to go in with your loved one and feel normal for a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Is it 4 hours? Is that what it was? 4 hour
Yes.
period. You just get to hang out and spend time together, and then of course then you got to leave, and that's always difficult.
Mm-hmm.
But it's nice to get that time. So that is good that they do that, and hopefully they'll the prisons that continue that for the people to see their kids or their parent, husband, wife, whatever it may be. It's always a good thing just to have that time to feel normal for a little bit.
So I'm going to ask you, I'm going to answer the question first for myself. I'm going to ask you what it was like walking out, of the visits. I know for myself, my visits would seem like they were so far apart, even if they were a week apart. It was, let's see, say I would have a visit, even family day. I would go back into the cell and, it was a good time, enjoyed the time, but I automatically had to tune it out of my head. Mm-hmm. I automatically had to put it away because I know, that, hey, this is going to be a while before it happens again. And if I continue to think on, that when can we do it again? You know, when can I see you again? When can I see my girl again, my dad, my family, whatever it may be? If I sat there and thought on those things, you know, then it would start to eat me alive. So people would ask, how was this? How was that? And I would give, you know, kind of short answers. And that's more, it wasn't nothing personal to anybody. That was a defense mechanism of how I knew how to, you know, defend my emotions and defend myself just by getting through that, laying down and going to sleep. Because there were some days, you know, in jail and prison where, you know, even when you're walking with Christ, and even out here, you're walking with Christ, but you wake up, you just feel depressed. You just feel anxiety taking you over. And you don't want to do anything. So you just don't want to move. It's in those situations when you do move that God works. It's in those situations when you get up and say, okay, no, I am going to go to the gym. I am going to get up and read. I am going to get up and pray. I am going to get up and call my family. It's in those situations that things always happen for the good. There's somebody on here now that hasn't reached out to their family member that's incarcerated. Maybe because they just, you know, have been hurt by them. And I'm not, you know, speaking on someone who has personally hurt you in ways that you know, that shouldn't have happened. But, you know, in your family, somebody has been incarcerated for something else in their life, and you are legally allowed to talk to them. Reach out, you know, connect with them, try to work through, you know, the things that you're going through, because if you're holding unforgiveness in your heart, they might not even be thinking about it. So it's not affecting someone that's not thinking about it.
Yeah. I just said that the other day when I was talking to somebody. They spoke of something that happened years ago, and they're hanging on to it. And I said, that's crazy. That person's not thinking about it at all. It's you. And that's, I mean, just through life and just through your incarceration, but just general life, I'm pretty forgiving. I'm not saying that to brag. I just am. I mean, the Bible tells us to forgive one another like Christ has forgave us. And if you want to be forgiven, you got to forgive. But then, I mean, time is short. And like you said earlier, you never know when that last time is going to be that you're going to be able to hug somebody or hold somebody. So don't hold a grudge and forgive. And in regards to when we would leave visits, it was always sad. It was always sad. We typically have been hours away. So it was, you know, it was a drive and took a day, sometimes stayed all night or whatever. But you would walk out, I mean, we'd walk out there feeling sad. And of course, I would always tell people, oh man, I saw my boy, he's doing good. But I know on your side of it, it was even more difficult. I wasn't going back behind bars. I was going to my comfortable house and going on with my life. But you know, when you get those feelings, or when I did, I can only speak of that. You just keep going. You just keep going. That's all you can do. You can't lay there and worry about it and stress about it. I mean, you do. I mean, you know God's got it, but you still stress about it, worry about it. You still have those negative feelings, the sadness, the depression type thing. But I know that on your side that it was even more difficult because you just went back to yourself by yourself, or with how many other people were in there. But like he said, if you have somebody incarcerated, reach out to them, go spend time with them. It's not an easy place to go. Definitely not. And I think every single time we went, I would sit there and be like, what am I doing here? Like, what am I doing here? Because it didn't feel real. It still didn't. After all this time, it still didn't feel real. I would say that all the time, it don't feel real. But then even sitting here now, it doesn't feel real.
No.
Like, it's finally coming to me.
It feels even less real.
Yeah. So
that's how I feel waking up every morning since last Friday.
I bet.
You know?
I bet. So but spend that time with them and don't hold a grudge. People hurt us, but we also, I don't want to say we disappoint God, but we do go against His law sometimes. So we do things wrong towards God. So just like your loved one may not have been directly to you, but make amends. Make amends. Life is too short.
Mm-hmm. So what would you say what was the impact when, you know, you thought that, well, basically in the courtroom when I got my time, when my time hit, what was that first, you know, impact on you?
Sure. I can't recall exactly, other than thinking, I can't do this. for that many years. And how is he going to do this for that many years? But it's, again, you just plug along, and there's a reason behind everything. And just like I say all the time, even though as a Christian, you do something wrong, you ask forgiveness, there's still consequences.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I say all the time. I mean, you can't erase the consequences. You're sorry for it. You've been forgiven, but there's just still consequences. So that was just part of that. And I've been objective. It's crazy because sometimes when I talk to people, I feel like they look at me like I have two heads, because I'm like, oh, I'm glad my son was incarcerated. And you know how I mean that. I don't mean that like I'm glad. I'm just glad because, like I said earlier, it really saved your life.
Yeah.
So people look at me like I'm crazy. And, I know one man in particular right now who said, I don't know how you do it. Like when this man's son was incarcerated in the past, he couldn't function. He couldn't function. But again, it's God, because I knew God had you.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew that God was dealing with you, and that there was going to be good that came from it.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that, because I know there is ministries out there, I know there is programs out there that get formerly incarcerated people to go back into the prisons, with their families. So I'm hoping that, with the right timing and, the right people, I know that God can ordain that's something that we would be able to do. I know we've been in speaks to that for the, juvenile center, and hopefully that's something that, can take place in, the bigger prisons and things, so people can see, the impact that it does have on the other people. Because a lot of guys think when they come home, I have to make this money for my family. I have to make this money. A lot of guys get caught up in the streets and selling drugs and gangbanging, whatever it may be, to try to make that money for their family, but not realizing that as soon as you get incarcerated, it's ripped away. Not only is the money ripped away, now the family members ripped away. So we have to focus on what is important in our life.
Mm-hmm.
What is it that is going to last? What is it that's going to be there? And continue to trust God and let go of the things that we don't need. Because if I would have let go of steroids and alcohol and worked on my mental health myself, and worked on forgiving myself and loving myself, my situation probably would have never arose.
Right.
But as men, we don't want to speak because we're too proud.
Yeah.
We don't want to ask for forgiveness. We don't want to speak on the issues and the problems that we're going through in our life. So that's the biggest thing for us, is to be able to start to speak on that.
Yeah.
So the last question I want to ask you is, how was it when you got the phone call that said, hey, I'm out?
Well,
this time.
I said I was going to leave work at 3, and then I kept saying, oh, maybe I can leave at 2:30. Oh, maybe we can leave at 2 o'clock. Maybe we can leave at 20 till 2. And then just driving here to see you for the first time after visiting, but not like in this kind of setting, and anxious, just like crazy anxious. And I think I cried all day on that Friday.
Wow.
out of a good emotion,
Wow.
Because I just, everybody that at work, I was saying, oh my goodness, guess where I'm going? And of course I would get choked up every single time, because I'm so happy, because it's the day that we waited for so long and prayed for, for you to get out and to be able to further your ministry and have a job and a family and all of that. So just the excitement and the relief, I guess, is a big thing.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, just excited, and even coming this weekend, I was really excited, and couldn't wait to get here until you asked me to do the live, and then I was like, I don't know.
Right, to do the Facebook Live, and she wasn't sure.
Yes, I'm glad I did.
And
Yeah.
I think that it went really well, and I hope people were able to see the impacts of what incarceration does to the families. I know we didn't get too deep on it, but we're just speaking of firsthand experience, coming from what is from our hearts. We didn't have anything scripted or set up. So I hope somebody was able to be touched by this. Somebody's able to help someone. somebody's able to be set free today because of the way God was able to work through this video. Many more things to come on Restoring Hope Ministries. I hope that will continue to stay tuned in as we continue to do interviews, continue to share God's word, continue to speak on the prison system and release and men coming out. That might be you right now stuck in your head. Maybe you're watching this right now still captivated of your own mind and you're not releasing things. You have to begin to release things so you can walk out a free man, so you can walk out a free woman. That's what you have the opportunity to do. Because if you don't, with the bad decisions that you're making, it could lead you to incarceration. I know guys that were in there, got drunk and they drove, and next thing you know, they're doing 25 to life for manslaughter. You know, killing somebody driving their car. Everyone on here, a lot of people over 21, if you've ever drank, you've drunk driving before. You know, even texting and driving. You've texted and drove. You could be texting and driving and go ahead and hit somebody, you know, in the car. So it can happen to anyone. So we must be careful on who we judge. There were so many people that I came across in prison, and my first perception of them, I judged them by the way the way they looked at me or the way they talked or whatever. And then as I got to speak to them, they just knew a whole lot about simple things in life, you know, big things in life, about God, whatever it may be. But it's so easy for us to judge a book by its cover. You know, the Bible says that God looketh at the heart and man looks on the outward appearance. So on the other hand of that, it's important to what we portray. You know, it says out of the abundance of the mouth, the heart speaketh. So it's important what's in your heart, because that's what you're going to speak. Then you have two choices. You can speak death or you can speak life. And through this whole situation, if there was any time that I started to speak death or depression or down, my family was there. My friends were there. My lady was there. Everybody was there trying to pick me up, trying to lift me up. Hey, don't speak that. You know better than that. You know, God's going to work it out. You continue to go. You continue to push forward. So no matter what situation you're going through today, God's going to work it out. God's going to help you to push forward, continue to strive, continue to walk. If you fall, if you stumble, it says you won't be utterly cast down. You'll be upheld by his mighty hand.
You know, I was listening to something the other day, a podcast I was listening to, and it talks about how, you know, Satan can't hear your thoughts. He only can hear what you speak. And when you speak negative and you speak, oh man, I'm so tired of this in my life. I'm so tired of this. I'm always sick. I'm always tired. I'm always broke. I'm always struggling. When you're speaking that, I mean, Satan hears that, so he knows your weaknesses, you know, but when you can have, if you have those thoughts, don't speak them. Don't speak them, because Satan hears it and he can dwell on it. And it's like, I don't know, I just picture it like an ice pick, like picking at it. I mean, if he knows your weakness, because we can have strength in Jesus, but you have to have a relationship, and you got to be in his word and in prayer to have that strength to tell the devil to go, to flee from him. But if you're always speaking negative, if you're poor mouthing, so we call it, he's going to use that. He's going to use that to his advantage. So when you talk about speaking negative, there's a difference in saying, oh, look, I'm struggling with this, when you're talking to a Christian brother or sister or to a counselor or whatever it may be. That's a different thing than get up in the morning, man, I got to do this stupid job. I got to deal with these people. And yeah, so, you know, just, you got to be careful what you say, because you're a lot of that stuff you're bringing upon yourself with your attitude and your words that you're putting out there.
Well, we thank you all for joining in and tuning in. And Mom, you give me a hug. I'm home for good, so it may not seem real yet, but it is, because I am home for good. So you continue to stay focused, family. You continue to share love with your family. If you can, give your mom a hug. If you can, give your dad a hug. I know, Mom, you'd love to hug Papa.
Yeah.
You know, so you never know how long you're going to have somebody in your life. So continue to love them, hold on to them, and continue to walk in your purpose. Amen.